to our speakers, member institutions, and the general public. Welcome to the webinar, Artificial Intelligence, Impact and Governance in Social Security, organized today by the Inter-American Center for Social Security Studies, which is part of the Inter-American Conference on Social Security. We meet in this virtual space today to address one of the most relevant topics in the current outlook, artificial intelligence and its influence in the field of social security. We are honored to have the participation of distinguished experts and panelists. Let me introduce those who will share their knowledge and experience on this topic. It gives me pleasure to welcome Master Nico Bananan, Senior Advisor in the Planning Department of the Finnish Center for Pensions. We also counted with the presence of Dr. Veronica Chardes, Technical Coordinator of the Project Epidemiological Management based on Artificial Intelligence and Data Science, who is also Professor at the National University Tres de Febrero in Argentina. Finally, we welcome Maria Paz Hermosilla, Director of the Public Innovation Lab at the School of Government at the Universidad Adolfo Ibáñez in Chile. The central subject we will address today is related to the revolutionary technological transformation that artificial intelligence has generated, which is capable to stimulate human behavior through the perception of the environment. While the origins of artificial intelligence go back decades, the current boom is definitely the result of the information society and the huge number of data generated every day. The digital age has brought a large amount of information from big data, the Internet of Things, and Industry 5.0, which has driven the exponential development of artificial intelligence. However, this upstream technological capacity poses challenges that we must address responsibly. It is important to bear in mind that artificial intelligence had the potential to streamline administrative processes, improve the quality of services, and optimize resources in our social security institutions. In addition, it has a capacity to analyze information, predict, and planning. From intelligent chatbots that allow for greater immediacy in customer service, programs that collect and interpret large volumes of data, to machine learning algorithms that help in making crucial decisions for our beneficiaries, the possibilities are unimaginable. However, the path towards the adoption of our artificial intelligence involves reflecting on its impact and benefits, as well as understanding its limitations. Certainly, there are countries such as Finland, which have a long history in the process of digitization and the application of artificial intelligence. Also, some countries in Latin America and the Caribbean are proposing innovative solutions in line with their realities, and in the case of Argentina, with the Artificial Intelligence Project, focused on public health and experience and algorithmic transparency, and the use of data in Chile. In this process of implementation of technologies based on artificial intelligence, ethical and information custody considerations are essential. Data used by social security institutions are of a sensitive nature, so the protection, prior consent, and responsible use of people's information must be a priority. In this webinar, we will seek answers to the questions raised by the incorporation of artificial intelligence in the field of social security. We will explore its impact, its benefits, and how this technology can be leveraged to come up with innovative solutions to improve the lives of individuals and their families. Once again, thank you all for joining this meeting. I'm sure that exchange of the experiences will be beneficial and lead to new perspectives for the future of social security in the age of artificial intelligence. Without further ado, I declare the webinar Artificial Intelligence, Impact and Governance in Social Security officially open. I will pass the floor to Master Carlos Garcia, who will moderate this webinar. And to my right side, this is Dr. Carmen Elena, who is an academic coordinator who will close the webinar. Thank you very much. I hope you have success in this program. Thank you very much. Welcome, Mr. Carrasco. I'm sorry, Mr. Nico, we are not able to hear the voice of Mr. Carlos. Please give me just 1 minute. And also some challenges that have assumed for the challenges once assumed in artificial intelligence. And also for the coupling for the current politics and also for all the agreements for cooperation within all the actors involved in the equation. It means companies on the one hand, but also experts on the subject, civil society, and of course the government. We start to the complexity of the definition of intelligence itself. When we add the adjective artificial, the matter can be complicated by the load of stigmas that surround us, and that to a large extent it influenced by science fiction movies. That is why it is also important to lay the conceptual foundations for the discussion. Already for the first definition of artificial intelligence developed by the Department of Computer Science at Stanford, this ability to make intelligent machines was pointed out. But I believe that a more specific conceptual framework is proposed by Tegmark when he defines artificial intelligence as the ability of inanimate objects to achieve complex objectives based on a series of parameters that can be set as by humans. Or they can be generated autonomously by the objects themselves. It means simulating human behavior. I believe that therein lies a subtle but decisive difference, and that is what distinguishes narrow artificial intelligence from generated artificial intelligence. The first one, which is one we have the most contact and which is immersed in our daily lives, almost without our noticing, from predictions and recommendations of videos, songs, travel routes, which are some certain activities that are related to artificial intelligence, where artificial intelligence doesn't have any room for action that what is program form. And generalized artificial intelligence conceived as that in which machines reach or even surpass human capacity in the speed of processing and analyzing for information, almost without supervision, which makes us think that it could achieve any objective. This type of technology is the one that worries everyone. For example, in the Actors Hollywood Society at the moment, the deserting managers of the big technology companies are involved in those issues. But I believe that its feasibility still has more unknowns and uncertainties. With this introduction, we will start a series of papers and explore the convergence between artificial intelligence and social security that offers potential opportunities. But this capacity or ability to change the status quo for the better compel us to discuss of its impact and the potential benefits and the challenges that incorporation of artificial intelligence entails. Without further ado, in order to give the floor to our guest experts who will help us to understand the topic in light of their areas of expertise, we are pleased to give the floor to our guest experts and to give the floor to Mr. Nico Bananen, who is a senior advisor in the planning department of the Finnish Pension Center. Mr. Bananan is interested into the question for Social Security. He has published different articles. He has worked in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the European Commission. And between 2018 and 2020, he has the chair of the Pension Committee of the European Insurance Platform, which is a strategic platform gathering over 50 national society security organizations in Europe. He holds a master's degree in social policy and health economics. He has published different articles on national and European pensions issues, and he is frequently invited to speak at conferences and seminars in Europe. Since November 2020, he has participated in the Socio Plus program of the European Commission, a social security expert in Africa as well in Asia. Currently, he is co-authoring a book of the Finnish pension system, which will be published in English in autumn 2023. Thank you very much, Mr. Bananen. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for your kind words and my presentation. So I will start by sharing my screen. So I have prepared a presentation. Just wait until it appears here. Okay, I will share my. So I think now you are seeing my screen, I hope. Just let me know if you are not seeing my presentation.
Okay. Yes, we confirm that we can see your screen.
Okay, thank you very much. So again, it's a great honor for me to join this conference, and I'm excited to share a bit of Finnish experience on artificial intelligence and social security. And my presentation is based on an article, a case study on the Finnish social security and digitalization, which I wrote some 2 years ago. And the article was mentioned in the conference brochure, and it's open access online. So please take a look at it if you find it interesting. So my topic today is more exactly social security, digitalization, and the need for relevant legislation. Okay. Wait. Okay. Perhaps now you only see my presentation. Okay, good. Okay, so just to start, so maybe all of you maybe not know so much about Finland. So just to mention that Finland is a North European country situated in Nordic, one of the Nordic countries, and what people usually know Finland from is maybe those who remember old mobile phones in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000. Nokia was a Finnish company that then, when the smartphone revolution came, lost its leader position in mobile phones. And then Finns are very keen of making games, such as Angry Birds or Clash of Clans. Maybe some of you have played, which are Finnish games. So the point is that Finland is a home to a lot of IT developers, which is of course important in digitalization. And second, I would like to mention that Finland is also known in Europe for its digital performance. So Finland, when compared in Europe, Finland typically ranks pretty high in digital processes. So when I talk about Finnish experience, it's somehow maybe a good thing as some leading experiences in Europe in this sense, because Finland, as I mentioned, is pretty technology savvy. It's very interested in technology, and it has a lot of supply of high-skilled IT personnel, which is of course important for digitalization. But perhaps I would still like to mention a few words, which I think why digitalization is doing so, ranking so high in Finland, and what I think are some key enablers. Firstly, I think that in Finland there's a high trust in government and state institutions, and this allows for society, including public administration, to adapt digital technologies. Because when people trust the institutions, then they are willing to consent and give authorization for institutions to use this data, because they can trust that it will not be misused. And a second key point is that Finland, like some other most European countries, maybe has a large welfare state and large social spending. So I mean that payroll taxes are high in Finland. So state collects a lot of tax revenues, but then at the same time, state redistributes a lot of unemployment benefits, pension benefits, rehabilitation benefits to individuals who are entitled to them. And this, of course, requires large population-level centralized registers. And Finland has gathered these large registers since 50s, and these registers are, of course, very important potential for algorithms because of the data, massive data they have. And the third point I want to maybe stress is that the Finnish social security is known for its innovative approach and experiment culture. So maybe some of you have heard about the Finnish maternity package that is given to every newborn child when a child is born, and the quite recent universal basic income experiment that ran a few years ago in Finland, where a part of the population were given an unconditional universal basic income for 2 years to see what kind of an influence it would have on employment and the well-being of this population. And I think this experiment culture is also important in digital processes, because it's still something that we're discovering. So you need to experiment before you can apply and enhance services and the well-being of citizens through digitalization. So these are the three key points, I think, which enables Finland to be in some kind of a leadership in some aspects of digitalization in Europe. But then again, I want to go a bit more on the legislation, because as was mentioned, law is very important for social security institutions and public administration. So with this digital process, it's a challenge to know which is leading the process. Is it legislation or technological progress? Because, of course, we need to have experiments and need to have some kind of technology leading the progress, because otherwise, if we have to wait always for legislation, then the process becomes really slow. But of course, as public administration, we want to have good governance. Everything is based on the rule of law. We have to follow the legislation. So what in Finland we do, and our social security institutions do, is they do a lot of scenario exercises where they look on different scenarios, what kind of potential with new digital technologies, use of artificial intelligence, we could change our services, benefits, and then what it would require in legislation. And then we communicate these to the ministry and decision makers. So they know that this is where we are going and this is where we need the law to go, taking these privacy data management issues into account. But this is something that is a working method, this scenario exercises, looking a bit one step ahead so that legislation can be implemented soon rather than later. So, but what I would like to a bit maybe also emphasize about the basic features of this Finnish digital process. So there is a big highway here in the picture in the middle, which means that there is some kind of a secure and accessible infrastructure for digital services, kind of a central common pathway. And you can see the roads going into this highway, and this is different providers that have access to this central infrastructure. And then this central digital infrastructure allows that digital services can be centered around individuals' life happenings, so to say. That I mean, if a child is born, if a person moves, if a person becomes unemployed, then the approach is through this life event, and then different providers know what this person needs. So this is kind of a life event approach that this basic infrastructure allows. And of course, safe data management, and it's an essential feature. It means that the benefits are only granted if an individual so requests. And it really close to the My Data principle, a European principle, which really puts the emphasis on the fact that the individual himself owns the data and the right to manage that data and how that data is utilized. That it's really, we really are citizen focused. Of course, it's their data and it's about their life. So it's really owned by the individuals, and that's why it's called My Data. And some, of course, these are basic principles. And then what are the challenges now we have? So, of course, as I said, legislation and digitalization are processes that go a bit hand in hand. So currently in Finland, we have a new legislation that is being prepared to allow for use of automatic decision making. It's in the parliament, and clarify issues that are outstanding related to transparency. For example, the transparency of the algorithm and data storage and the rules behind the algorithm. Because it was a clear wish from public administration and social security institutions that they wish to have more automatic processes in their services, and the legislation was not really in place. And of course, big questions that are related to this legislation is close to ethics, privacy, autonomy, security, human dignity, justice, discrimination, and the balance of power. And legislation and data management needs to be robust against these threats, except for example, chatbots, where individuals want to talk with chatbots, but sometimes they clearly forget that it's a chatbot and want to start typing very personal information, social security codes and such. So how do we deal with that data, and how should we make sure that there is no stored any data that could be sensitive and that the person has not wished that is saved? And of course, this comes again back to the trust, that it is crucial that public institutions communicate openly about their processes, what kind of algorithms they are used. And this is actually challenging because you can describe an algorithm so that nobody understands it, but we want the citizens to understand if there's an algorithm, how it's used, and respond to criticism in an open manner. So this again is a trust, and individuals can always There's a legally guaranteed access to government documents and documents that are on the individual. So this is something that builds trust on the individual, that they can always have access to what the government has or social security institutions have registered on them. So it's a kind of creates some transparency. But okay, but here is just another example. But this is about, because I talked about the common pathway before, but of course, what I mean common pathway for the citizen, that they can go. In Finland, we have a suomi.fi site. It translates to finland.fi, to which individuals can go. They log in with their bank credentials, and then they can access different service providers, because we have decentralized social security, different pension providers, unemployment services. But for the providers, for these social security institutions, they are of course different entities, and they have their own registers. And the vision is that the data can be verified at the end of these different providers, that it's not in a central register in this sense, but it's a network through which these different providers can verify their data. So what I mean with the common pathways for the citizens, but behind the institutions have their own networks and registers that are in separate entities. And of course, it can involve both public and private entities, as was mentioned in the beginning of this conference. So now maybe I can propose some examples of some legislative challenges, because some 5 years ago, the Social Security Institution in Finland implemented a robotic process automation process, which meant that some simple benefits, for example, some simple sickness benefits, were granted automatically after an individual had applied, if they met certain criteria. There was no profiling of applicants or anything. It was just based on an application being formally in a certain way, and then it was granted with certain, for example, a doctor certificate and a certain illness. But however, there was a problem which the Ombudsman quite quickly noticed, that this was not in line with the current legislation, because in the Finnish constitution, it wasn't really clear that you could have this kind of a decision based solely on automatic decision making. So it was not covered with valid legislation. And then, of course, according to Finnish constitution, all exercising of public power should be based on an act, and then this wasn't based on an act. So they changed some processes, and then it was agreed that this is okay, this is according to good governance, this is very limited, very simple issues. And this was a case of rule-based automation. So there was a clear rule, and then if that application, you could tick these boxes, okay, it's according this, then we can grant. So there was no profiling of applicants or anything. And then but still here we realized quickly that, okay, we need to modify our legislation a bit. And then maybe a bit of more challenging legal issue was when our institution, so the pension center, which we have data on individuals and their sickness benefits, socioeconomic status, etc. So our pension institution decided to run a little project on predicting disability pensions 2 years before, to see if within 2 years this person would end up in disability. So this was a machine learning based automation. So it wasn't that clearly based on just ticking some rules on the box, but we ran a large mass of data, 500,000 individuals data, which was anonymized, of course. And we used a self-learning statistical technique to predict whether an individual would end up in disability pension in 2 years. So again, this is very different because here we used a self-learning technique, because the previous example I talked it was a rule-based, ticking the box automatic process. So this is a much more challenging issue when it comes to legislation. And at the end of the process, the algorithm predicted correctly a bit less than 80% of cases when an individual would retire on a disability pension, based on 10 years data of that individual that we had in our registers concerning sickness benefits, socioeconomic status, earnings, and some other socio-demographic information. So again, this comes back to the very good central registers that we have here. But then this was only a project that we wanted to test how this works. It was not implemented, but then one of the Finnish pension providers, pension fund Varma, they developed a bit of similar forecast model that would help employers to address disability risk before it happens. So it's a tool that can be used in rehabilitation to make working place better and to a bit predict in advance what could be problematic working places as such, but they are not used for granting any benefits or anything like that. So it's more of just a tool to help employers to tackle this disability risk. So this is kind of a learning by doing experiment, and it was an experiment that we run, and it's a very, very challenging legislatively in this case. But as long as it was just a experiment, then of course it wasn't anything, and then now it's used as a kind of a tool that can help to prevent disabilities. So in that sense, of course, it's just a tool. It doesn't, you're not granting any benefits or anything. But just as a last slide, maybe I would just say that it was just an experiment that we ran, and then of course, if we would have worked more on this tool, it would have become better. But just to say that it was very good in recognizing those with the greatest risk. So the 15% with the greatest risk of having a disability pension. So there was less than 1% of false positive. I mean that it said that a person would get disability pension even if that person would not get. So of course, that such tools are not perfect. They sometimes say that somebody will get a disability pension even though that person would not get a disability pension. So you can see that to get a very high accuracy with this little project that we had, you would get a lot of false positives. So that, I mean, that it would say that this person has a disability pension risk, even though it is not really the case. If you want to have a 90% of predictability. But again, this was just an experiment, and of course with time it would become better. But it was something that we can still see quite clearly the power of algorithms and these self-predicting statistical tools when you have such good data as we have here in our institution and in Finland. So I hope you got something from my presentation. I ran out of time now, so I can say muchas gracias for your interest. And if you have any comments or questions, I'm happy to answer now, or if they come to your mind later, you can always email me, and anything. Very very happy to have this opportunity to participate at this conference, and I'm looking forward to the next speakers. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your intervention, Mr. Nico Bananen. It is interesting to highlight how these digitalization processes and the incorporation and the use of digital technologies poses this technological, legal, regulatory framework related to the organizational challenges. So the legislation can answer to these politics. And also, as a confidence for the Finland social security process, they have the way to the developer for these technologies. And also to present the needs for the citizens, which is very important to just manage the data. It was very interesting of this advanced phase that you comment where the artificial intelligence also support all the national changes. We already have some reactions in the Zoom chat and a couple of questions accumulated. And we beg a little patience from the participants because we will capture those questions, but we will answer them towards at the end of the webinar. We will pass the floor to Dr. Veronica Chordes, who is a technical coordinator of the Latin America project, Epidemiological Management based on Artificial Intelligence and Data Science from Argentina. I will read here a CV. She holds a PhD in social sciences from the School of Social Sciences of the University of Buenos Aires. She has a master's degree in political science and sociology from Flaxo and bachelor's degree in anthropological sciences with sociocultural orientation from the School of Philosophy and Letters. She is also a professor at the National University of 3 de Febrero. She is coordinator of this project, which has the objective or aims to create a system for early detection of epidemic outbreaks based on their artificial intelligence applied to clinical records from digital medical records in the public health subsector and the other relevant data sources. Thank you very much. Dr. Chordes, we'll pass the floor for you. Thank you very much. Also to Dr. Carrasco for the invitation. I will share my screen right now. And it will be much better just to talk about my global experience after having heard Nico's experience, because they live in another world. Can you confirm me you can see my screen, please? Besides all the agreements or the welcome, how much time do I have to present? You have more, just like 20 minutes, or if you need some other minutes, you are allowed to. When Carlos invited me to this, I was thinking about how to explain the characteristics for the debate into these conditions that Latin America need or some certain other countries have already. So I will talk about in a particular project in respect to the interinstitutional conditions for artificial intelligence development, so that can be applied into the health sector. Just to start, is just a project that is funded by IDS, CRDI and the ZEDA, that is started in 2020 in the framework of the pandemic, which I very quickly call, in which we can apply it from the institution and also jointly with other coordinator group or the research group that is a research project. And Nico already talked about experimentation, so we also have that information here. So we are not implying a political policy, but we are trying to run a public policies. This is something that has not been presented into during the pandemic from 2020 to the future. And at the end of the call, we get the fund. So this is the objective of this talk. I hope I haven't been so fast for the interpreters. So I will try to focus on the necessities for this objective. So we will try to present some tools or develop tools that we will mention also. And then we will I will provide you some links in which you can search for other commentaries where they explain on the things that were already mentioned from Nico. So it is very good because some of those things that we already have here are already solved or very approached in other countries. So in many countries in Latin America, this is such that it is not in common. So because we have to fight against policies through the time. The ring map, it will be a brief presentation and also for the challenges of the project and development tools. Just in 5 questions that or the challenges that we had are presented, and also for the some other questions or concerns that you may have, or the concerns that the Latin American have into this project. This project was experienced with certain Argentinian organizations and also was a group of research. It is centered into the Interdisciplinary Innovation and Research Center that has working into the relationship with civil organizations and also with certain frameworks into health. First of all, for the care of information, just to make sure to have those data available in case we have an emergency, and also to imply what are the planification for this. So this is the objective. Carlos also mentioned this in the presentation. This is just to develop certain tools that can use electronic health records and contribute to the early detection of epidemic outbreaks by the use of artificial intelligence. We will see that they have any contributions to the early detection for outbreaks that were not only for COVID, but they are also thought to have an experiment to confirm or review how or what they can be able to mention or what they can predict. So we are working in 2 components. The first one, which is very important, which is separate that develops tools. So it is always separately. So it was very important that was the implementation and the help and the development and implementation and for integrated health. It is an electronic open code, a decentralized source, which is very important when we have to recover sensible data from health, which was developed by the Health Ministry. And also for the Prevention Ministry of Health, and was a pilot with the help of certain municipalities. And also it's used by certain provinces by Argentina. As you may know, Argentina is a big country in extension. I'm sorry. In Argentina, we are all with cough. So we were talking about the effect of digitalization. What is happening with this? In Argentina, we're still looking for the implementation for electronic medical histories. So this proposal for this integrated health tool is to offer a free tool with the help of the government to make use or implement this in different health environments. So this is, of course, in the running or the development. So the FACID, CCCID makes some research about this. On the other hand, for the old artificial intelligence on the data, we work in 3 projects that are the work with predictive works. And also we work in 2 stages. with these models that work with clinical history electronic data and also with the context. And some other models that are that takes longer time to predict previously the possible outbreak or possible change into the development of the certain islands. So we are trying to make the pilot due to the COVID, and we are almost trying to within this project. And we also work with other project, which is automatic identification from all the structural fields. First of all, by the free electronic access to the data. And some other elements that can put into the table epidemic outbreaks that were not diagnosed before or informed by the health ministry of the nation. So we have worked with more important information that have been not involved. We were able to take some decisions about it. For example, for the human development and some other technologies, not all with all the things that was developed in our 5 project was used artificial intelligence. They were used other techniques or other kind of statistics from the science. So this is something that is part of the digitalization of data. So we tried to have the nuclear to know what to develop other projects. So this was a project that was implemented or more experimental. This just shows how the disease worked or the COVID pandemic worked, but also we put it into the surveillance, into the access for certain data for the symptoms or the illnesses, and categorize them in the way they can prevent them for the future, or for the possibility to other outbreak, or in the case of dengue, that are some of the outbreaks that we are here in Argentina have every year. So we have to act with political policies for certain spaces. How the incomes, or also what are the information of the clinical people are into the framework, into this territory. So this is something that are also into the scope. In this, other tools are important. So we are trying not to call them solutions, but with these kind of solutions that we have to resolve in everything, it is not available here. So we are other kind of lines that we have to follow. So we work with data, we work with models, and also with devices. One thing that was the most important thing was the sensible data that we used to make these investigations. Not only was able to provide the teams that we're working with this data, but we also we used in a secure way this data or this information that we were provided. This was distributed, and we generate resources for other kind of research. So we will able to provide the discussion into the update for the protection for sensible data in Argentina. So these are 2 scopes, one for the implementation and for the integrated health implementation, and the other for the development for technologies to focus on these transversal things that I mentioned before. So we are always working into the public legislation into these issues. Not everything is artificial intelligence. The most thing for us was to try to recognize the potential for the clinical data to resolve certain issues. We use some things, but we weren't into the emergency for COVID. So all those tools that were a pilot are into the sense to widen a history or clinical electronic history, so we can make use of these new functionalities. So the potential of the use of this medical information, we identify other challenges. First of all, a scope. We have here a diagram in which how the teams were coordinated. So it was also for the strategies for the institution to imply a program for this kind of projects, in which every or any kind of the lines demanded the vinculation with government, universities, and also individuals. But also, if you can see here the line in gray, we work with providers or management of operative infrastructure for the kind of data we have to manage. So it was translated into the articulation of more than 20 institutions that not only were into the academic field in case of search or research document, but also we work with governmental institutions. And first of all, with municipalities, where we make municipalities in some provinces to make some cooperative development for the freedom for the software. And also, we work from some others to make sure we are able to work together. And some other considerations demand a huge effort that are not as different for the state, but in the framework, in a project or the emergency, these all integrations or concepts were needed. In particular, I was taught, as I mentioned before, with the responsible use of the data, we have to secure this responsibility as a project we have in the institution. And also the SIECTI was the organization that leaders all this research process. SIECTI is a research institution that it is not specialized in artificial intelligence, but it has to link to other institutions related to artificial intelligence, and also to have the authorization to make use of this. We work in the middle of the year, so we have to work very hard. So this is just a specific case study. So these words was something that make this project available, or in the to make it huge due to the processes we have through. So what we have to change about these institutions of the artificial intelligence, there are other framework that is not generalized. Well, in certain way, it is also representative, but it is just a step, experimental step into a revealed case, because this is a project that we're able haven't been able to be implemented into the use of the data control, but also for the use of data to make the research. So identified 5 challenges or that was generated or that are generating through the project, some these characteristics that I will develop right now, just quickly. So it has to do with the actors or the commissions, the laws or the standards. And also with certain specific things that happen in Argentina that relate to the intersectionality and perspective of gender perspective that demand a huge amount of adjustments in the way of capturing of data. Just to know the practice of people that they organize their data, their devices, their way of thinking in their projects. So these 5 things are just linked into this articulation between the research and also the management into in the sanitary framework. I already mentioned intersectionality and gender perspective. I may think that every of them have actors. So we have to, one dimension that we have to highlight is the technological sovereignty in the self-development of data. So in Argentina, we have to work into a framework of the territory. And also something that Nanan mentioned, it's the legislation for to social security and some of the information that are sensible. In respect to the research and management, is have different natures that generated in different knowledge in a project of this nature that are experimental, but also is thought to solve a management issue or public issue. For example, it was the case of the pandemic. In certain things, just we have tensions in the way that all sectors work together. So a FI is for me, it's a certain exercise that I has to do with this. So in some future, the management has many issues to answer for the knowledge that they already have to make it in a good time. And at the same time, with the scientific generated knowledge, it doesn't mean that they are not updated, but in this particular project, they have to make some effort about the specific needs of scientific needs into the management for the health needs also. And the health management has to make an effort to understand on how the science make use of those data that they have at that time, and also for the quality they can provide for the information they have. So these practices, times, and different objectives take us also to put into a permanent translation, a permanent process to the origin sector. And also for the financial institutions making to adaptive process, and also without the changes of the scenarios that we mentioned before, we can see how the islands were changing. As I can highlight here in yellow, where the changes into the teams or responsible people in organizations or institutions participating. We were talking about people trust into institutions. Sometimes in Argentina it doesn't happen, but some of the main purposes is because when the management change or personnel change into other, or the responsibility change from certain organizations or official organizations, they are not maintain the same political processes. So we have during the 2 years, we experienced these changes. So it demands flexibility from the project. While the research takes certain time, it takes longer just to make this transformation. The second question was the interdiscipline. That was a project of data science, and also the use of artificial intelligence demands a different kind of knowledge that have been working together. For example, we have to take into consideration many things that are very important also, but it takes a lot of work of this work. And also for the identification, automatic identification for phenotypes. It hasn't been able to look to see this information without the help of these institutions. For example, where informatics or TICS, epidemiological area, or the management of the epidemiological data. The most poor epidemiological processes, how they can see for the implementation of this. And also we have the representative work. So we were in charge to have teams that can provide this knowledge into a generous way. When an interdisciplinary team doesn't work together, everyone, or if they work good, everyone can good well. So this is just my thinking. I think that if we work together, we can learn from others. We don't have to just focus into a specific disciplinary, but we have to work in full. So certain specialists were very generous to learn from others, and also to take the knowledge from that was an advantage for us. It is something that we all have to try when we work with data in general, because we wanted to know what are the kind of data that was take off from these institutions in a certain topics, because they don't know the way they were captured or the mechanisms how they were take or took or closed. So in health we can see it almost always. The primary assistance that we can provide or in health and the public systems, it has the characteristics that other systems of health doesn't have. So into this specific context, we have to take this information and to know what we can do by identification of certain biases and what is most important to the development of this. And also the intersectional perspective that I already mentioned has to do with the results. And I have here a citation from our director. When the teams doesn't have diversity or the results doesn't have diversity, the impacts cannot be implemented, and there were biases. So the print has it that dimension that's already incorporated. They also have incorporated political, especially with women, into the decision-making environment. Around 80 people participating into this project. Almost every person were almost women. It was not focused into the gender perspective, but also into general aspects. Even though the projected is already without financial funds, there is some other work that we are trying to implement into disability environment, because we have to help the competition with other projects just to maintain this rhythm into the intersectionality perspective, intersectionality. As I mentioned before, there is not only the information. We cannot be distracted to make sure that this how it will impact to communities. And also we work into the integrated information that takes into consideration of the perspective in gender for the gender identity. So this legislation describes this. So in this, we can create this tension just to classify and to generate a new policy to identify these issues and classify, or just to put into an open area for everyone to may be able to work into the adequation for the standards. And also we have the participation for transgender communities. And also, of course, a discussion with the doctors or who will ask for this information, or what is the importance to have these different participations. Artificial intelligence is not only a technical problem, but there are many things that we have to take into consideration that are behind them. And also to work for the rights. Rights are sometimes vulnerable. And also a thing that we work on here into the intersectional perspective in gender in particular was this pathologicalization document for doctors. Throughout the years, they were including into this list they included some pathological terms that are part from the transgender community. So just to apply these international policies, we have to identify these terms in the way we capture the real the reality of the use of this data. So there were certain terms that were associated into mental health or some others related to homosexuality, but they don't, when they doesn't have to separate them. So in case in Argentina with the legislation for the gay and heterosexual law. So for example, the concept of legal abortion, in Argentina, we don't have legal abortion. They have to take off to this process because this mentions certain things that are already done, but the policy doesn't show it. There is not a technical issue because it can be solved very easily, standardly. It is just a political problem that can be part of this data that we make use. And the other dimension that I am very interesting in Latin America is technological sovereignty, and also for the technologies that we make use to use this, and also to use the technological roots of the things that we do here. First of all, was the election for free technologies. We make use for the transparency for the algorithms, but no. Without any neutral technology, we have to use with certain pilots. So we have to review with the certain expressions or regular expressions and neural networks, and also with a prototype for 4 months, the results were very positive. With identification of certain phenotypes were the same. So we reflect that sometimes the most important and most interesting that the technology that are not more updated can resolve something that it's much explained. So we have to resolve this. It wasn't necessary to use technologies that were not useful. So we have to begin again. For example, due to the existing developments for the identification for certain texts, it were more developed in Spanish. If they are, even though they are developed in Spanish, it doesn't mean that they are developed for health. And also, it doesn't mean that it is developed for certain Spanish sections. So all of localization factors are important for the sovereignty for technology, and also generate the tools that we need. And also the control into the sovereignty to know the place where we leave the data we are working on. We work with sensible data in the health area, and also they have their own standard framework. And this is something we have to work on to generate a way. And just to generate our way that allow us to the use of the responsible use of data, to make use of it in a security way, because we have to take care of them and to use them for research. And just to make use of this to research, it takes a lot of steps. There is a national scope where we have to put the data. We have a space where we can work with locals, or where we receive projection chats for the harmonization for the text, and also for the harmonization for certain texts, and to consider certain aspects that allow us to make use of this kind of information. So we learn about of this, we automate this information, and we provide certain manuals for the use of terms in health. We are still working on that, because some of the things that are the most important is the capacity to understand what information are leaving into the clinical institutions. Maybe to know what we can do with them, and to make and just also to have a information consent that have to have interest of them. We also participated into the law for personal protection information, and we have a permanent linkage with the management of policies that have to do with this, because all this effort that we made have been visible, and all the information that we use, that we use it to take care of them, make being visible for future projects or for research that can make consideration into this path we have been running. General knowledge in institutional manner, research and working together. Sometimes it was very positive because institutional work is satisfactory, and sometimes because of the value and also the condition that they have, all the priorities are reformulated, can be sometimes a bad to work on. So it's something that we have to work on. And then the complexity of the linkage, interinstitutional linkage, due to all the tools or instruments that have to be generated. We have to bear in mind that we need resources to make it happen. And also the adaptation of the project, of the changes of management, institutional management into the organization and institutions. And also the name was changing for the Ministry of Health. And we're working together with this kind of projects, and then it approaches into the devices. Argentina has nowadays certain artificial intelligence plans for projection that is still they still lack from specialists. So we are still working on it. From this project, we have some difficulties to change or to work with certain specialists because we have less time to work with them. So we have to incorporate other kind of specialists. A ethicist that can provide the knowledge generation and to make sure what was the purpose to make use of the data in a safety way. And also they collaborate with them, and most of the times we are developing some other ideas in projects. And in this sense, we were looking to know what are the other perspectives on how to transform a project of this nature into a research community. Because into the practice, it exists a research community, but in a certain way, we are continue working how to open into a more effective way. So it also have to do with the interdisciplinary or the translations also. And just to make use of these relationships, because it's important, because we don't have any catalog of a specialist. There are certain community work communities, but we still have. And then we also have the experience and the emergency issues that has to do with the ethical use of projects. Besides all the management and the law of gender and research, we would like to put into the table these discussions. What are the scope of the artificial intelligence to the management for the rights for human rights? And also there are 3 moments in which we don't have enough confidence or trust into institutions. If we say that we are specialists, we cannot say that we can be done automatically. We don't have to, we cannot make use of the autonomy itself, but we still have complex information or complex things that need some other processes to use it. And what are the ecosystem into the artificial intelligence into our countries? Do we need professionals? We have enough knowledge, or we have computing knowledge. So artificial intelligence are faster are running faster into our legal standards. And also interdisciplinary work. This interdisciplinary work that can start into the conception for the tool as the way to resolve an issue. Not to make use of this for the body of the data, but just to approach the problem from the tool. Thank you very much. We would like to have much time to keep talking about this awesome topic. Then we will have other space in the Q&A session. Thank you very much for your intervention. We have many aspects to highlight, and also for the planning information for the prevention into political policies, and also how can we be who have to step forward to this future, and also to the help in the development for the implementation of these technological tools into artificial intelligence, how they incorporated, or how they be incorporated into government and national governments and local governments, because these strategies are fundamental. And also the collaboration between that has to be managed into universities, into the educational environment, and also for the providers of services. And articulation of this has not been effective. So we already have some specific questions about these topics. And then we are going to continue with Maria's presentation, when we can go back to your presentation to talk more about these details. The Lucid is one of the other challenges into artificial intelligence, which is a director of the Public Innovation Laboratory of the School of Government at the Adolfo Bañez University in Chile. I will read here Zivi, and then she can pass the floor for her. The mission of this University Adolfo Bañez is to contribute to the transformation of the public sector through data science. Dr. Maria Paz Murcia holds a master's degree in public administration from New York University, and is a professor and researcher in ethical data management. She was part of the committee of experts for the development of national artificial intelligence policy. And she was recognized as one of the 100 billion women in artificial intelligence ethics in 2022, a list that international highlights the contribution of women who have been pioneers in this area as a part of ongoing effort to make artificial intelligence more accessible and diverse for all. Please, Dr. Maria Paz, please go ahead. Thank you very much. I will share my screen. Can you see my screen? I was invited to talk about the transparency of agreement, transparency, and the ethical use of data application for Social Security. I think that is very important, as we have seen for the previous talks. We have make use of algorithms for the decision making. So I agree with the previous speaker that we don't have to use only artificial intelligence, but we also have to use the automatic decision making to have a most experience that can be implemented into this. And also, this has not focused into artificial intelligence, but we haven't been covering to this list of that we concern us. I will make use of some certain examples that we have here in Chile. We have made our research. We have a repository of certain automatic systems in public administration that is called public algorithms that have 25 cases that are implemented to the administration. You can click on the website. They receive a Dominic Award into the digital democracy. And also we have this annually. We will talk about certain information about this repository. It's just a a source where any officials can find certain ideas and also to visibilize to the society and research the existence of certain systems for their protection, the control for certain citizen information. What is focused into this repository in the last information that the algorithms is implemented into all public policy environment. And also some of these implementation that are taken into certain focuses. Also for public administrators, apply for administrators and international organizations. And we see it as a percentage is most easier. So these are 25 systems or algorithms that are categorized into many issues. We have a environment protection and also security and public order. We can see here that they participate into the decision making that is very important and also into the social security environment. And also talking about Colombia, Professor Juan David Gutierrez, which is working in the University of Los Andes, was ahead on a project that was working to the publication of new database. You can download it into, this is the website link for the Rosario University. This repository have 113 systems that are implemented for the Colombian state to help for the decision making, and for the automated decision system implemented. That include artificial intelligence, but not only the artificial intelligence, but if you can click on this website, you can find certain information about the purpose of the objective of the system, what kind of information they are using. If they use a personal information and how they have been funded, and the foundation of this information is also available. And these are the links where you can find the information. We are starting to look for certain research and how they're implemented into the public administration. And also we are seeing that there is a phenomenon that is emergent and is still working on. And we are working every day how we see it implemented. In the case of Social Security, I will talk about this interesting case that is the Ministry of Health of Social Security in Chile, that is part of the Chile population, that is from the ANTIC system, but also they have to pay more social benefits that are provided through the agency into the social protection environment. What happened here is when employees have to pay into the pay for the beneficiaries. What is the main problem here? Is the main problem is a cotization that has not been designed for the person that have been assigned. If we may know if this cotization is not assigned, your pension will be less. So this problem that is called about the cotization, or they have many errors in the registration that were 1,000 of people, was that motivate official teams of Social Security institutions that was made into internal team to try to mix into this. So they called it as FACIT route. In this system, was created to compare certain information about the civil registration. So the people are identified, and then there are certain processes to register this information into the systems of the ETIS. Thank you for the implementation into August and September 2019. It was resolved that 72% of the conditions that have no correct identification. So we are talking about that we have less than 1,000,003 cases in comparison to 1997. After this, they have to implement certain policies to lower the number of these. In this case, FACIT route is a way to help to fix the problems of Social Security. For example, I have here an example how the data science can help to resolve this kind of information into the Social Security sector. Here we have a link where you can see a video where this fuzzy robotics explained. We also have another example that was the fund of health that was implemented with the help of this preventive medicine rule. What it does is just to accept the reclamation for medical licenses that are incorrect, to leave it into human review, and also for reclamations or recommendations of the medical health. So it was automated, the acceptance, due to a certain criteria. And this helps us that people can receive much in a much quickly way the assistance. In 2019, 68% of the licenses were approved and signed nationally. So we have to reduce the days in which they have to take to approve the license. So this is also an issue that was already resolved. And also we have the Supreme of Social Security that was the main institution for the reclamations of this. It also implemented a project for the claims response, and was a predictive process. This kind of projects still exist that are still implemented in other ways that we are not know about. But what is very important into this framework where the political policy are making decisions in the way when we have many examples into social security, it's very important to know in what we are doing into this kind of information. So we have to do it ethically, responsibly, with the responsibility. And we also have some definitions. The data ethics is the branch of ethics that studies and evaluates the moral problems. And also that have to do with all the data generation. And what is the idea? Just to formulate some solutions with ethical or correct information. That when we are talking about ethics, we are talking about the bad and good things, what we have to do. So in this case, what we will have to do in respect to the integration of the data. So this is data ethics. So we still have we still have other definition. We have to make it into a more specific practices. What principles we are talking about? We are talking about the proportionality. In regards, for example, just a full example, just to we don't have to make use of a complex artificial intelligence. So we have to bear in mind that we have to use a proportional devices or proportional process, also social license, and also how we do this specific data. While we are doing this, customers, we are considering this if they are well or not. So it will generate a problem, institutional problem, or for the trust for my public institution. The topic of transparency also we will talk about later. And also we have the non-discrimination equity topic that we have preparating certain systemic processes that exist still in the society. And also that can, the system make use differently for women and for men. For example, for people in rural areas, we are protecting data. In this case, are related to a privacy principle. And finally, the principle of responsibility in English, that English is made known as accountability, or in this case, we translate it into responsibility. These are certain terms that can be focused into the ethical for the data. Now I will talk about the algorithm transparency. I'm going back later into the other principles. But the algorithm transparency is just providing people with the information necessary to evaluate and interact with algorithms and prevent them from producing results that are unfair, arbitrary, or that affect fundamental rights. So the focus here is related to the human rights. Talking about the human rights article that they have the right for social security. So the function that working into the framework into social security are focused into develop certain transparency processes and also to interact with them. The main problem here is that there exists no transparency here. Almost in all of the experiences we have here and in comparison with the world experiences, in Chile 2021, in alliance with the Transparency Legal Institute, we implemented the law for the right for the data. And also, these are some of the information that we identified. In certain population, they have access to the information of this organism. And also, we have all the most of the systems detected 78% was make use for the strategic systems. They were not supported, but they have to provide services to the citizenship. And also, if we find here this in the public sector, in which one we are working on in all the representative public policies, we use of personal information and opacity. Besides just to, for example, for this year repository algorithm public algorithmic repository, it is important to know how these are funded. Even though we already have information about this, half of the population are without information. So this information is only the source of financing. It's not the amount. And also this is a great news. In Colombia, headed by Juan Ruiz Gutierrez, prepared a paper that was based into this, in which they mention what is happening in Colombia, that if publicly available information about the systems is insufficient for third parties. For third parties, such as civil society organizations, make use or verify systems responsibly. And also, if whether the algorithms generated are biased decisions or recommendations, and how the systems are protected from risk associated with the cyber attacks. So this is the situation of the studies we are making. We still have to make some other research about this topic. And also, we have Spain finding into this. In Spain some algorithms that we have to find out. And this is a topic that is not that transparent at this moment. Talking about in Europe, there are certain topics that how to use the data information that take into place into the Holland Republic. Now, so it has to do with the detection of certain risks to process certain care benefits, just as a subsidy for the benefits for care. This government provides certain help to parents just to take care of the child. And they make use of algorithm systems that make use that 26 parents were accused of the bad use of this benefit. So this news provide a many complex idea of these people, because they were accused that they make use or they made fraud from this benefit. And there are dramatically cases of bankruptcy and also in health issues and also for suicide. So this is very complex information of the bad use of this kind of benefits. So there was also a parliament that determined of this, and government are paying some indemnization for this. So we have to take care of this and how to implement these kind of systems. So in this case, just to diminish the fraud is very important. So we have to be reminded that we don't have social security fraud, but the way that we can do it is just to bear in mind how do we do it. And also we are talking about certain topic that already Veronica mentioned. We also have lived this in Chile, as she presented this that are common projects. This is an initiative, a public-private initiative that was funded for the Inter-American Bank of the Development, BIDLAC from the BID. And also with the help with certain incorporation or institutions of the digital government, Directorate for Public Contact, Chile Compra, and Transparency Council, and some other institutions, and also for the Magical Institution. This system looks to transform the way on how to develop artificial intelligence and also automating systems for decision making. It means algorithms with Chile and also with the private sector. So what is very important of the institutions that provide services into the public sector. Into this framework of the project, we have been providing certain tools or concrete tools to make it to make the ethical use, to make it happen. For example, the evaluation of the protection of data, the algorithm impact, or certain tools for the model card, or certain statistics that I look for to diminish discrimination, transparency. Can you hear me well? Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much. Transparency of the model that has to do with the tools for model cards in English, or algorithms, algorithms. So there are certain or concrete things that we have been working on that can provide us certain results from these pilots that are already available for the use from public organisms. What is this tool? This is an ethical formulation of data science project that was published in August of the last year. So you have where which you can upload it. This project is still in the design process. You can see the typologies that the DGT has, and also the ways that you can make use of this category. For example, in the prediction system, having a current risk could be the estimation. So it can be the bias for this. So this is provided or we stocked into the framework for this guide. It is in Spanish. It is available in Spanish to make use of you. We also make 3 pilots, concrete pilots that were in 3 specific levels. There was an institution for the social prevention. We make 2 digitations, one's for the health environment and also for the EPS, for the internal development. We make experiments on how to buy this technology, and it's experimental. We have the results for the type data. And also how to buy or how to make use for the artificial intelligence. These have certain requirements and certain standards on how we can ask for the provider to make sure that the system is transparent, just to protect data and to make it less discriminant. And also this is the reason we have to use of the controller of the Republic, and it is also available into the link. Recently, we have a controller a call talking about that have any contrast higher of certain amount, they are obliged to use a type biases. These are provided into any kind of services. And also the most interesting part here is that it is important to make use of this, and also to be for it to use it a lot. And also this make use of the type biases because it eager or they make it easy to use it to provide or a product or service. So in this idea is integrated into this type. And this standard is applicable in Latin America. We also have developing our other standard that is the first one. So we are looking, or we're trying to see what the other countries are processing this. This will oblige more than 1,000 international organizations to imply this into their system automatized making decision systems. So how to provide services for the citizenship, but also for the relationship between state and customer. So this reform will be a public consultation. It will be published at the end of the year with a limit for a year, and almost for the next year, at the beginning of the next year, will be available. And also they have transparency instructions active. It means that the public institutions have to publish certain type of information. It will be obliged every monthly or every month have to publish this. We the next month, then the last month, we have a pilot with 7 algorithms with 4 public organizations. We work with more than 20 institutions. And this pilot was the last year, and we still have another work that is already been approved for the council to have access for the public information. If you're interested into this information, in this screen, you can see certain examples that we have worked in some other institutions. For example, the Division for Government Digitalization. They have their methodologies and also for all the tools that are make use for all of you in a free way. If you're interested to learn more about this topic, we also have a more structural program. We invite you to be part of our diploma course, international diploma course in science or data science. This diploma course is focused to create directors, managers in data science projects. And also in the model 2, we will talk about all the ethics data. There is a promo with where you can receive 2 certificates in linkage with Instituto de Monterrey. So I invite you to visit this link so you can find out some more information about this. Thank you very much. We will now we can answer all the questions. And also, I will provide you my email so you can find us in the webpage. Thank you very much, Dr. Maria Paz. It is interesting to highlight certain aspects. We have to highlight the errors of the registration that have a repercussion when we talk about the environment about social security. The cases you mentioned for the optimization of times and also for the licenses, and also for the use or the way we use all the data that imply the acceptance for the data providers. We have to take care of not to reply these algorithms because artificial intelligence science, data science are a feed via the implementation of this. And also there are certain imprecise effects that we are not in the best scenario. So in respect of the algorithm transparency, how it has to do to incorporate all the people or people that have to interact into these technologies, and also to face this thing that suppose the data processing, and also for the inputs and the process that happen into the in the process for this. So it is necessary to talk about this, and these old examples show that although these experiments are just pilots, it is beneficial for the society. Now we will pass to the question and answer session. And we will mention certain questions that the public had made. I will provide this into the list. So the speakers can answer these questions. So you are able to answer these topics if you are in Master Nico. If you agree, I will ask you some certain questions that are specifically for your topic. And then we can resolve or categorize these kind of questions. Donald Rodriguez Esquivel asks us how much time it will take for government to imply or these politics into artificial intelligence into social security institutions. Magda Miranda also asked, this algorithm can be used for all the social security employees with syndrome, with Down people. And also, if you can explain what are the government into the transparency and the government. There are many messages here of congratulations for the panelists. Other question is, what will be the most important thing that you have observed into the social security institutions, into the incorporation of the artificial intelligence? This is what we can answer right now. And then we can interact each other with these questions.
Okay, many thanks for the questions. And yeah, okay, about legislative process. Well, I'm not exactly sure what was meant with the question, but there was a transitory process of 12 months that you have to implement the new law, because it was implemented beginning of this year on artificial intelligence, and it was in the program of the last government that we had. So I think it was a 3-4 year process to put it as legislation, and now they have a bit of short period to implement this new law. And on the question of the Down syndrome, we don't have any algorithms that would grant benefits without anybody applying for the benefits. So of course, this is not meant for something like that. And then I think the third question was on the transparency and the legislative process. I think in Finland right now, the next question is to what extent we can be proactive using this data that we have an algorithm to be proactive towards the individual, because still it's the individual who always applies and decides that he's in a situation that he needs to apply for something. So, but to which extent can we be proactive when it's too coercive? And when it comes to legislation, it's also the idea to mainstream this algorithms digitalization to all legislative processes. So you always consider this aspect when you are implementing and drafting new law. But it's a bit complicated because in Finland there's a large social security reform ongoing right now. So I cannot really be the legislative process is a bit depending on this social security reform. And then there was a question of threats and what are the main with this. And I think it was very clear with the previous presentation of Maria that what happened in Netherlands could very well happen in Finland, or I mean in these countries where we have very large central registers. At birth, you're giving a social security number, and then throughout the years, there's a lot of information related to your social security number. And then you can have this loss of privacy and freedom when it's meant to be that it creates more freedom and more opportunities. And then it's kind of the opposite happens if there's too strong interference from the government, like happened in the Netherlands with this child benefits when they started targeting individuals based on an algorithm, and then it went all wrong. So I think this is a big thing that we are acting, that we want to be proactive, but then it comes to certain extent and then it goes over and then it's not good anymore. So it's still, the most important is that the individual he's the owner of the data and he or she is really the focus. So it's not to go to the extent where we interfere with personal freedom and autonomy. So that's the big threat with this algorithmic revolution. So thank you very much for these questions.
For Dr. Veronica Chardès, she also has many specific questions. Within what management equipment or did you make use in the project, and also for the epidemiological management? Congratulations for your congratulations for the use for the ethical use for the intelligence, artificial intelligence. And also, how were the advancements for to imply this into social protection systems, and what are the problems that you have to encounter or experience in respect to the regulatory framework for the lack of legislation into this project? In regards to the way of organization, we have many projects. We chose one of them. Not all the projects were agile or challenging, so we choose one of them that will have more information about this. So this is one with a way to organize the information and work with the communities. So just to make sure of the way of the digital board was most of the most academic project processes, but we have to work into a work plan for research project. In respect to the standards here in Argentina, we have already plans that have considerations that are implemented into many regulatory frameworks. For example, by certain supranational organisms like the UN, with the use of artificial intelligence or certain topics, and also for the local standards that are not implemented here. The project in particular was born into the emergency framework from the pandemic. So it also was helped by certain criteria that make the use of data available. So we had many issues ahead from the ethical perspective, but it's not only a processes of implementation, effective implementation that has to do with other products or certain products that were developed for national organizations for artificial intelligence. That it means there are algorithms for identification for ethical images. So it takes a huge processes during this. For example, the organization for medical management. So what they try to is just to update themselves, as I mentioned before. The technology is running faster in comparison with the other technologies for the data. For example, this happens in Argentina. And also there was only a research, it doesn't have this kind of issues because it has to locate it or focus into the health sector. So we didn't have this kind of complication, but there are certain complications that you may encounter in the future. What happened in Chile, it is almost that they have a certain similar process there, or we have a certain similar process in Argentina. Just to make sure about the decision making. Do you have any other question? No, we don't have any more questions. Thank you very much. This question for Maria. The algorithms are far from the social security processes, which results just to taking into account what they exposed. A question from Elizabeth. Can you mention some other cases of success in which, or other kind of reference in which we can we can talk more about this, about these projects or these pilot projects? What other steps has Latin America and Caribbean do to talk about the implementation or effective implementation of the transparency for the algorithms? First of all, in the market ad, we have to do, first of all, what we did in Colombia and Chile, just to have these studies that are trying to make a study to know who use algorithms and what are the purpose for these algorithms. The next step is just difficult to see that all decision makers will prioritize these effect. So this is the first step, just to study. The second step is the regulatory analysis. Where can we go for? In certain places in Chile, we have the fortune to have that we can a law that can approve this. We already have a law that is called General Instructional, but it's almost the same law. There's interpretation of the law with an organization that has the same faculty. So this will be the second step. So just to see how can we step forward with certain standard so it can be happened. The law for the data protection is useful for the systems that use personal data systems. I'm not an expert in social security, so I'm not able to talk about in all the sectors, but most of these systems, and also for the law of data protection, have a clause when explained the need to explain the logic for the decisions or the automatic decisions that affect significantly for a life of people. Algorithm, transparency, and the protection law also is implied for this. And also with this regulation advancement, the third step is just to the capacity need. We have to look for the needs for the private sector. So we can provide these algorithms or have the transparency for these algorithms. For example, when we buy these programs, to ask the provider certain kind of documentation about these systems or this kind of traceability of the institutions in the system. And this all can help to make it more transparency. But we still have to work on it. And almost at the end of the year, we also have some results or certain output to work on this transparency in Chile. And also about the success cases in the public algorithms, .cl, you can find certain cases with the use of data in public administration, the use of algorithms. In respect to the success cases, it is difficult to know. In certain cases, it can be more evident in certain occasions because we have transparency in these systems. I will say that the case I mentioned before for claims of medical legitimations are reduced into 36 days. So we have to reduce the days they are claiming for this. Because if we have a person who needs this information or this claim, we have to reduce the days for the claim. In public algorithms, .cl, you can find some other kind of success cases. I think this is all for the questions. I think that the challenges for social security can be handled through the help, or not only for the help, but also for the help for these automatic systems. Because this can help that the system can be more human, just to less or to reduce the days to put into practice this legislation. So we have to bear in mind to see if this is pertinent to automatize this system. Thank you very much, Master Maria Paz Morcilla. And also we will try to categorize this kind of comments because we have many comments here in the panel. And also due to the time we have here, we still have many questions, but we'll ask the speakers if you would like to add something to the webinar. Would you like to add something? You will have like 20 or 30 minutes to add something. I would like to thank you for the space here and the answer and the question also. And I always, I'm happy to hear about the experiences from others. I always learn from something new. It was awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Veronica. It was very interesting to know about your experience in your countries. I haven't seen the experience of your countries. I will follow you in the websites. And also, I will also want to thank you, Nico. It was very interesting to know what is happening in Finland, a country that has more contributions into this sector. But I think that in this topic, we have making some important topics. So we also want to have an experience that we will export into Europe in the future.
Yes. Okay, por mi parte, muchas gracias también. So thank you very much for this great opportunity. It was very interesting, and I learned a lot. And I think all countries a bit different experiences, but same challenges and same topics. So it was very interesting, and I'm sure we will talk about this in future some other time again. World is small in the end, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before closing this, we would like to just announce something. So the recording of this will be published just in a few hours, so you can see our content. With the Second Center of Social Security Studies, we end with the help with the conference. We have provided certain implication, and we have to invite you to participate in the next academic proposal. We will almost opening, and we will talk about the artificial intelligence course that are applying to the social security field. So it's oriented to provide certain knowledge and principle of artificial intelligence principles into the social security. That can allow participants to identify a possibility or responsible for to meet the needs for social security. So it doesn't have restrictions for the requirements, because the objective here is just to know the scope of the different tools of the artificial intelligence into the social security. So it will take 4 modules. And in the introduction, where we can mystify the artificial intelligence process, so we can a more realistic perception, and also this implication. In the second model is structured to reflect or the viability for the implementation of the artificial intelligence, and also for the application phase, in which we can provoke or make a case laboratory with diagnostic exercises of the available infrastructure and human talent, which is necessary for the implementation or before the applying artificial intelligence based on the social security. And then we have a module dedicated to analyze the cases for the artificial intelligence social security. And then we can close a module to review all the governance considerations associated with the appropriate and responsible use of the artificial intelligence in social security. Who is interested into this offering, we will be available. And then with this QR code, you can be able to find more information about this. And also what other topics we would like to see or we would like to talk about, or what other topics we would like to talk or we can teach you in this process, so we can calibrate this information for all teachers team that we are consolidating, so we can provide all the teaching and high-level teaching. For more information, you can contact to these following emails for the coordination for the academic studies. So now I will pass the floor to Dr. Carmen Elena Velez, who is the coordinator of this study center, just to conclude or to close this webinar. Go ahead, please, Doctor. We would like to thank you all, Dr. Veronica Cortez, Nico Vanenan, and Master Hermosillo, to share these experiences in a topic that is important in the world, as is artificial intelligence and the application in the social security. We will also want to thank you for the more than 100 people that was connected into this webinar. And we also want to thank Master Carlos Garcia for his contribution into the moderation of this webinar, since he is a specialist from the CS, and also for all the human resource that was helping into the developing of this webinar. We're closing this activity, but we would like to invite you to visit our website so you can know about our academic program and all the activities that we are developing in the CS, contributing to the beneficial social security process for the society. We conclude this webinar. We hope please have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.